The reason it's so hard to talk about capitalism today is because people don't know the history very well of something called primitive accumulation. But as a political philosopher, I can tell you that Marx and Adam Smith actually duked this issue out back hundreds of years ago already. And for both of them, the beginning of capitalism, or in other words, the reason why human beings transition from feudalism to capitalism, is central to the way they think about the issue. Now, obviously, Marx critiques capitalism, whereas Smith endorses it, and you can start to see why when you look at how they explain why and how capitalism began. And it comes down to a concept called primitive accumulation, which is what describes the way in which people were able to get the capital and the wealth necessary for capitalism to function. In other words, the money had to come from somewhere. And the question is, where did it come from? For Smith, the answer is very simple. It came from people becoming more frugal and better with their money. He says people realized the benefit in getting and saving up their money, and so they did, and they started investing it in the market, and that was what led to the rise of capitalism. Now, Marx disagrees with this, and in fact, he mocks Smith's story for being overly romantic. He says, oh, if only that were the case. But for Marx, it was actually that violence, exploitation, and theft created the conditions necessary for capitalism, and was that elites came together and created two classes, that of the haves and that of the have-nots, and they did so through stealing land and transferring mass wealth from regular people to the elites. You can see how these very different stories lead to very different conclusions about whether or not capitalism is good or bad, but what I haven't talked about yet is the issue of women and colonized people. Now, Marx actually does have something to say about the colonized people that I will be talking about in parts 2 and 3 on this series on primitive accumulation. Curious to hear from you all, how did you understand and learn the history of capitalism when you